All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So, I don't know if you could tell, but I am here back at the school. I do apologize for you, my Monday, Wednesday student. Um, I know I said I was going to have this up on Saturday morning, by Saturday morning, but I got sick and, things like that. So, I wasn't able to make it until I got back here on Tuesday morning, and that's when I realized like I didn't make the video for you guys. So I do apologize, um, and I hope that this didn't like set you back and things like that too much. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with today's lesson. So here is your warm-up picture. Basically, what I'm asking here is this: what is this artist trying to say about America and the Cuban people? The Cuban people is represented by that woman you see with the star on her helmet or on her hat. Um, and the other people, those three guys you see, those are the Spanish. So, from your interpretation of this picture, what is this artist trying to say? So, think about it, write your response, because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so July 2nd, 1881, President James Garfield goes to the train station to go to New Jersey to visit his family. It's like a little vacation time. Well, the thing is, though, at the train station, at the platform, he's shot twice by this guy named Charles Guiteau. Now, Guiteau is a mentally disturbed lawyer. Okay, this guy in his head had the thought that if I go off and campaign for Garfield, if I go knock on doors and get people to vote for him, he will then make me a cabinet member, like Secretary of War, Secretary of State, Secretary of Interior, Secretary of Education, whatever. So that was in his head. In reality, President Garfield had no idea who this guy was. So when Garfield won to become president, he's like, "Oh, how come I wasn't appointed Secretary of Interior? How come I wasn't made Secretary of State? Secretary of State? Why?" Because again, it was on his head. And because of that, he became raged, filled with rage, and he felt he was cheated out. So he went to where President Garfield was at the train station and shot him twice. The first bullet grazed his arm. It just hit into, you know, but the second bullet hit his spine, in the vertebrae, and it kind of lodged in his abdomen, so his stomach area. Okay. Now, the toe is caught, because right, and then the first doctor who looks at President Garfield basically sticks his hands inside, like his fingers, and tries to get the bullet. Here's the thing. Two things. First off, the president didn't have any type of numbing agent. They didn't put anything to numb the pain, stuff like that. So he could feel that dude's fingers going through his back and things like that, trying to look for the bullet. The other thing is you have to remember is at this time the germ theory with Louis Pasteur was barely like starting to become something. So some people had no idea what you're talking about with germs. Some people who were doctors heard about this, and some of them were like, "Yeah, that makes sense because infections and things like that." La la la. And then there were some doctors like, "That makes no sense whatsoever. That's the stupidest thing we've ever heard of." So this doctor didn't wash his hands, stuck his fingers in, tried to find the bullet. Here's the thing, though. Back then, the most common notion in medical, times was that if a bullet is not removed from the body, that could lead to blood poisoning, nerve damage, and or organ failure. So the bullet had to come out. That was a big thing under the medical practices back then. So all summer long, basically, different doctors tried different things to get the bullet out. Some doctors were like, no, 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 this guy is an idiot. Why'd you have him examine the doctor? I'm this doctor, I'm such and such. And they were doing different things to try to get the bullet out. Now, originally, after that first doctor tried to find it, his wound was only 3 inches long. So if you take your finger and you see those little divots in between, that's more or less, más o menos, an inch. Okay. So that's how big it was, just like this. But by the time all these doctors went through and tried to find the bullet, his wound had become 20 inches long. Okay, that's huge. Okay. Um, and basically that wound, the color of the skin and stuff was like greenish, grayish. It was nasty. There was full with pus. It smelled nasty. Um, he had flesh like hanging off the ends and things like that. It was really bad. The president had these scorching fevers. I mean, we're talking 105 temperature. I mean, to the point of like brain damage. He had extreme chills, so he could be like really, really hot, sweating bullets, and all of a sudden just like freezing cold. And he showed signs of confusion. Like he would be like, what's going on here? Who are you? Things like that. Where's my horse Charlie? Things like that. Just now the thing is, as time went on, his organs started to fail and he started losing weight drastically. He went from 210 pounds when he got shot to 130 pounds. Now, one of the more sadder things that happened to this poor guy was that Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, created this thing called a metal detector in order to find the bullet. So he's looking around with this machine. He's trying to find the bullet, and this thing is hurting and it's burning President Garfield. He's like, no, no, don't worry. We're trying to find the bullet, and they would hear these rings, to let them know that hey, there's a thing of metal. But the thing is, they were like, well, why is it over here? It should be over here. So they go through and and the thing is, they didn't realize is this: the president is on a bed. The bed on the mattress has springs. The springs are made of metal. So the metal detector was picking up the springs as they were checking them. So they're basically torturing the guy for no reason. So sadly, President Garfield, he dies on September 9th, 1881. After all these doctors try to do all these things for several months, he finally passes away. Now, Charles Guiteau goes on trial. And this is the first high profile case in which a person pleads not guilty by reason of insanity. He tried to say, I'm crazy. I was nuts at the time, you know. Uh, Now, was the insanity plea used before this case? Absolutely. But this is the first high profile, like everyone in the country was reading the newspapers about this type of thing. Um, that high profile. So he tried to say, no, I didn't kill him. The doctors did. And even the Gateau's lawyer tried to say that too. Like, hey, look, he shot him, true, yes, but the president would have survived. It's these doctors that did all the stuff that turned that wound from 3 inches to 20 inches, and he died of infection because of those doctors, not because of Gateau's bullet. And of course, the jury didn't buy it, and they decided that he was found guilty, and he was hanged on June 20th, 1882. Now, February 1895, Cuba struggled for its independence from Spain. Now, there's a thing called yellow journalism, which is a type of newspaper that we had in the United States. We still have it to this day, basically. It's basically these guys who are trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. They take like gossip and they try to make it bigger. So, like, if I use the example in class, like if Kim Kardashian told her sister, "I don't like your outfit," they'd be saying like, "Oh my gosh, she thinks her sister is ugly and stupid and things like that," and "Oh, she hates her sister, she resents her for what she did," and blah blah blah. So taking something one comment and just expanding it, more than it is. That's what yellow journalism people did, and they're trying to get people, American people, to sympathize for the rebel in Cuba. Now, one day, the USS Maine, which is American battleship, which is in Havana Harbor, all of a sudden explodes and it sinks. Now, to this day, we don't know why it exploded. We don't know if it was saboteurs. We don't know if somebody decided, the Spanish people decided to blow it up. Now, we don't know if it's just somebody messed around and, messed up on the battleship and messed around with some torpedoes or something. We don't know. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, it did sink, and that really ticked off a lot of Americans. Now, at that time, Spain had an armistice, like a peace treaty, like a kind of like a you don't shoot, I don't shoot type of truce going on with Spain. But the American Congress was like, no, 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 no. You guys did this to us. We demand that you give Cuba their independence, or else we're going to war. Well, Spain declared war on us on April 24th, and we declared war on Spain the very next day. Here's the problem: Spain was not prepared for war. The United States, we're 90 miles away from Cuba. So that means we can go to Cuba and back like 8 times, no problem, before a Spanish ship could even get to Cuba. So we could send soldiers and guns and reinforcements and supplies or whatever before the Spanish could even get any type of supplies from Spain. We fought in the Philippines as well. Okay. Now, here's the thing: after the war was done, after we just basically kicked the crap out of Spain on December 10th, 1898, Spain said, okay, what's the agreement for peace? So basically, we told them, you have to let Cuba go, let them be independent. They did. The islands of Guam and Puerto Rico, you have to give to us, the United States. They did that. And the Philippines Islands will buy that from you for $20 million. They did that. They agreed to that. So, still to this day, Guam and Puerto Rico are territories in the United States. Those are American citizens. Yeah, the Philippines, we basically, how do you say, it? Gave them their independence. You know, we told them like, hey, you guys can be free, things like that. So that's why we have a pretty good working relationship with the Philippines, because we did pay for their independence and we gave them their independence. We didn't tell them you're part of us. No, no, we said you guys are good. Okay. Now the second president to get shot and killed on September 6th, 1901, at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. President McKinley is shot twice by a guy named George B. Cortelyou. Okay, now the first bullet that Cortelyou shoots, it miraculously hit McKinley's button on his outfit. Now the buttons are made of brass, so this is metal. So the bullet hit it and ricocheted right off. The second bullet hit him in the stomach, and uh, the thing is, the doctors there were like, "Well, we need to get him to a doctor really quick here." And luckily enough, there was a little hospital set up at the Pan American Exposition. Now, it was there that the surgeon sutured the wound, the stomach wound, and stopped the bleeding. But they were like, "Yeah, but that bullet's still there, you know." Okay. And the thing is, they were kind of like, "Oh, should we take it out? Should we not?" Because remember, Garfield got shot, but he would have survived if they just let the bullet there. But again, because of that medical thinking back then, they were like, no, no, we got to get it out. So now they're kind of cautious about that. And they're watching the president, seeing if how his health is and things like that. So on September 12th, he's feeling good. He's like, hey, I'm feeling great, energetic, things like that. So he's telling everyone in his staff, I'm good, don't worry, it's not. Hey, Teddy Roosevelt, my vice president, you were going to go on vacation, right? Yeah, go on vacation. You're good. Don't worry about me, okay? So Teddy goes on vacation. Um, the very next day, however, his condition worsens. He's no longer chipper and energetic. He's now drained and sweating and tired and just looking awful. And the day after that, he dies from gangrene and blood poisoning. So one president, they went way overboard to try to save him, cutting him up and trying to do all this stuff, trying to get the bullet out. And the other one, they didn't do enough. Now, Theodore Teddy Roosevelt becomes president of the United States. And unlike McKinley, because remember, if you remember from last lesson, the rich and powerful people wanted McKinley because he was pro business. He let the businesses do what they wanted, things like that. Teddy, however, even though he was a rich man, he came from a rich family. He didn't like rich companies and how they stomped on the American people. Um, so he went after them. Now, like I said, Teddy was born rich, came into money. Okay. Um, but the thing is, he wanted to give himself this tough man persona, you know. So he basically said, you know what, I got to do what tough men do. So he thought like those wilderness guys, those guys out in the mountains, things like that, hunting bisons and hanging out with the Native Americans. Those guys are manly, man. So he decided to do that, and he ended up really liking it and becomes just the image that he thought he wanted to be. He becomes it. He's a tough man. Rides a horse extremely well. He leads the Rough Riders at the Battle of San Juan Hill at the Spanish American War and becomes a war hero. He serves 2 terms as president. And then at the time where the president could run as many times as he wanted, he said, no, I'm not going to run a third time because uh, George Washington, our founding father, said 2 terms. That's it. So I'm going to do 2 terms and that's it. However, if you want to vote for me, you should vote for my friend here, William Howard Taft. So that's what he tells the people, and the people say, yeah, yeah, we'll vote for Taft. Taft is the fattest president we've ever had. Okay. Yes, Taft was just like Roosevelt in that he wanted to go against monopolies, and he actually did more against monopolies than Teddy Roosevelt. But he was a big guy. And one of my favorite stories with him is that he got stuck in the White House bathtub. Yeah, he was that fat. He got stuck. So they had to get him out and they had to get a new tub. The new tub was basically so big you could fit 6 people inside of it. So yeah. Now the thing is though, 3 years into Taft's administration, Teddy's in Africa and he realizes like, you know what? I don't like what Taft's doing. He's not doing that good of a job. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna run for president again. Now, the political party of the Republicans are torn because you got Teddy Roosevelt, who people really, really liked, and you got Taft, who is really going after the millionaires' businesses, the monopolies, and that's what a lot of those people like. So they separate the party. And some of those Republicans who broke off with Teddy, they become known as the Bull Moose Progressive Party. Now, this has happened quite a bit of times in American history when it comes to politics, where 2 candidates are in the same political party and they divide the party. And I mean, I think every single time, if my memory serves me right, every single time the other political party person wins because they're united as opposed to the other side, which is divided into two. So the 1912 election is the only election where a former president, the just former president, the current president, and the next president, the person who's going to win, are all in the same election. Okay. And just like I said, Roosevelt and Taft lose the election, and Dr. Woodrow Wilson becomes the next president of the United States. Here's the thing: Wilson is the only president, still to this day, to have a doctorate's degree. Not a doctor like the ear, nose, and throat type of doctor, medical doctor. He's a doctor of education. But still, he has his doctorate's degree. Still the only president to have that. So here is my question to you. Who do you think really killed the President Garfield? Was it Guteau or was it the doctors? And why? Don't forget the why. Okay? Explain why you believe it was Guteau. Or tell me why you believe it was the doctors. Now, if you notice, there's no writing prompt because I want to see how well you guys can write a sentence without my help. Have you learned already how to write a proper sentence? Okay? That's what I really want to see. Okay. So, with that being said, hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed this. So, you guys take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.